Hello, you're listening to Wine Blast with me, Susie Barry, and my husband and fellow master of wine, Peter Richards. And we've got a great show lined up today,
we do, don't we? We're answering one of life's very biggest questions.
The big question.
Yeah. What is the meaning of life?
That's not the big question. Come on.
I thought I'd throw it in.
Wine?
Just in case you had any insights to it.
Anything to do with wine?
The opportunity was to answer it with wine. Is the meaning of life.
God.
But,
missed opportunity.
Yeah, so the big question we're dealing with
Story
today is
of my
what wine's been like during lockdown. The question that everyone's been asking us.
They really have, actually. Everybody I see is like, what's it like for wine?
Yeah. Which is fair enough. So in this programme, we've got some fascinating, intriguing views from the Wine Society and Diogenes the dog.
Diogenes the dog.
Two very different UK wine retailers.
I think they sound very different, don't
they? They are. We've got the results of a Twitter survey, of course.
Of course, we had to have a Twitter survey.
Enlightening as ever. And in a Wine Blast exclusive, we are taste testing the big brands of wine. Will it be controversial? Well, here's a brief clip.
If anything was going to make you a teetotaler,
it smells like kind of
I've thrown
char.
mine away.
If you stuck your head into a barbecue,
no, let's not be. Let's not.
Kind of like some sort of maple syrup poured over your head at the same time.
So all this and more coming up. But first, we've had a message from Jonathan. Now, Jonathan won our first ever wine giveaway.
He did, didn't he? And we've been feeling a bit guilty, haven't we?
We have slightly.
But first, before we explain, Jonathan, he emailed to say thank you for the wines. He said, and this is what he said. He wrote to say, not least at this time, which is so much uncertainty, the enthusiasm, it's a bit Spanish, isn't it? Enthusiasm, warmth and wit and knowledge of your podcast is a dependable joy.
Oh,
so sweet of him to say.
That's very nice.
Let's hear from Jonathan himself.
Susie and Peter, hello, it's Jonathan here in Newcastle. Very happy winner of 6 bottles of beautiful English wine, which are all sat here with me now. And we're making very good friends whilst I research all these amazing producers online. So thanks so much to you and to the producers and to WineGB for the opportunity to taste these special wines. Thanks also for your podcast, which is always so informative and refreshing, and also companionable, which is important at a time like this. So thanks again, and chin chin.
Oh, well, don't forget, if you want to hear your voice on Wine Blast, you can message us via SpeakPipe anytime. Just not too much swearing, please. Now, we need to go back to the guilty thing, don't we?
So Jonathan had his WSET Level 2 exams on the Monday, and we managed for those 6 bottles of irresistibly delicious English wine to arrive on the Friday before the weekend before his exams. So, did he resist? Or was the result catastrophic? We're on tenterhooks. I'm on tenterhooks. I really want to know.
I think you're going to have to let us know when you get your results, Jonathan. And we apologise if it all goes Pete Tong and we're to blame. I'm sure you'd volunteer, wouldn't you, to retake it for Jonathan? Surely.
I would, actually.
He'd probably be foolish to say, yes, you can.
Exactly, because I'd probably fail it, because he probably knows more than I do. But Jonathan, we hope the results went well. And we're going to move on now. We're going to talk about what wine's been like during lockdown.
We are indeed. I mean, I think the fun answer, really, that I keep seeing emblazoned on T-shirts and sweatshirts everywhere is wine is the glue holding this 2020 show together.
Susie Barry.
Sorry, had to say it.
Talking about swearing. Goodness, telling everyone else they can't swear on our show, and then you're at it like nobody's business.
You can bleep me out. You probably bleeped me out. You probably bleep me out most of the time, don't you?
I have the power of bleep.
Completely. But no, I mean, I think being a little bit more serious, wine did become not really serious, a sort of a motive for lockdown. I on my mum's WhatsApp group, it was constant every day. There was kind of like, is it too early to have a drink yet? And this was like 4:00 in the afternoon, and I'm on my second glass, or where's the rosé? It was just constant.
But
funny.
Talking to people across the industry, though, I think the picture is a bit more complicated, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
I think some people have upped their intake, which is and particularly early on, and definitely we saw sort sort of wine retail boom, didn't we?
We did,
We got some stats here, haven't we?
Good stories, yeah.
Booze sales through the major retailers in the UK rose by £2 billion over lockdown compared to the same period last year.
That's a lot, isn't it? So that's
Nielsen
the April to July period,
exactly.
isn't it?
So apparently alcohol sales in supermarkets was about $7.5 billion from April to July.
But to sort of balance that slightly, we've also heard that sales of no and low alcohol have gone up, went up enormously. I think probably when people realised they simply could not keep up their heroic levels of consumption. And I know in the US, sales of non-alcoholic beer in May were up 44% versus the same period last year. So it's a kind of I suppose that's an up and up, but it's up with alcohol,
I think it's quite
up with no
complicated.
alcohol
I think,
as well.
The bigger picture here is what's really important is you've got to allow for basically an entire sector effectively being taken out. That's, restaurants, bars, clubs, what's known in the jargon in the trade as the on-trade.
Yeah. So we've seen some figures that illustrate this. The consumption of alcohol in the UK nearly halved during lockdown. So that was again the weeks between 70 weeks between April and July. It was down from 2 billion litres in 2019 to 1.3 billion litres in 2020.
But that's all alcohol, isn't it?
That's all alcohol. All alcohol.
Wine
but
obviously
wine's in there. So actually, yes, the retail sector was up. The restaurants, though, were down, and the net result, when you put it all together, is that we sold half as much alcohol and consumed half as much alcohol.
I suppose it makes sense given that roughly half of the booze sold in alcohol is sold in restaurants and bars, so it's not
sold
surprising.
In the UK,
really.
yeah.
So it's not this easy picture of wine sales booming, isn't it, in retailers? So it's actually been pretty difficult. Interestingly as well, I think we found some data showing that the figures show people have been trading up a bit. There's been one thing. They've been treating themselves in lockdown.
Like that.
I quite like that. So apparently the £3 to £5 segment dropped 40% during lockdown.
On a bottle of wine?
On a bottle of wine,
£3 to £5 bottle of wine.
Yeah. Do these things exist? They obviously do.
I was thinking...
but the £5 to £9 category has been up, which is interesting. I think in there, though, there was an element of retailers deciding not to run discounts during lockdown because they think wine will sell anyway, which is a bit naughty. I don't know. But
I don't know. I mean, do we agree? Anyway, but what we would say, I think you'll agree with me, is always that we would always suggest trading up a little bit. We're not saying spend a fortune on your wine, but trade up a bit because a £5 bottle of wine has basically got about 30 pence worth of wine in. If you get to £10, it's about £2.70.
But we would say that, wouldn't we? Trade
well,
up.
Of course we would.
Anyway,
we don't sell wine.
Some other data from Wine Intelligence. I think this is about the Australian, Canadian, US and German market, showed that people were reverting to the familiar, the comforting, in a time of crisis as well. That's also interesting. It
is interesting. And it did get us thinking, didn't it? And, what is the familiar? What is the comforting when it comes to wine? Wine geeks... like us probably always love kind of obscure stuff, but what's the equivalent of Marmite or I don't know, Tetley's tea or Andrex? In terms of wine, what is the equivalent?
Exactly. So this started a ball rolling, and following that rolling ball as it gains momentum is what this episode is all about, isn't it? From big brands to countercultural wine innovation. But should we start with a sting?
So first up, we asked the good people of Twitter for the wine brands they rate and also the brands they don't rate. Then we had a quick look at what the biggest wine brands in the world and the UK are, and we went out and bought some in our local supermarket.
We went out and bought some.
We did indeed, a bit of fun for later. But let's start with our Twitter survey.
Okay, we've got some Twitter survey stuff here. So the question I asked was, what big brands do you rate and what don't you rate? All answers of interest. And obviously, we had too many to mention here. We're going to rattle through quite a few.
Yeah.
Just brief summary. Countries mentioned.
Yes,
Australia.
so we had Australia, the US, Chile, Argentina, quite a lot of New World, New Zealand as well, and then quite a lot from Spain and France. I think we could,
also interesting to note that what came out was the rating brands wasn't just about quality. It was also about brands having different levels. So some top end wines as well as the bottom end wines.
So you can trade up within a brand.
Exactly. And also environmental concerns were really raised very often. I like this brand, and also because they endorse have sustainability, which is really interesting to see. So we're going to run through, we've got some quotes here, haven't we? So
some answers from people on Twitter.
Yeah, so first, hard to beat the Spanish for drinkable volume wines from Dunn.
Absolutely. Olivier said Brancot's Pinot Noir is amazing value.
Then we had Finton, who said Torres is the obvious choice. Well-made wines at different prices and quality levels with an eye towards sustainable agriculture. Spot on.
Absolutely. Dave said, I enjoy most Jacob's Creek, Trivento, Conchiatoro, Cashier del Diablo, Connoisseur, Cellier de Dauphin, Villa Maria, and Mcguigan. Not a fan of Gallo Barefoot Hardy's Some Yellowtail.
Then Stuart said Campo Viejo, Torres, Cellier de Dauphin. Controversial take. I had Yellowtail Chardonnay and it was absolutely fine. Be gentle with me. Stuart, we are always gentle. He said he adds the worst big brand for taste versus cost was Laurent Perrier.
Oh, gosh. And then we had, what did Tom say? Tom said, if we take brand in the broadest sense as a guarantee of non-crapness, then the good ones are Villa Maria, Calvert, Gonzalez Byers portfolio, generally sort of Gonzalez Byers, Gallo, non-Gallo branded wines. And then he also said Lidl and Auchan.
Yeah. I've got a feeling there's going to be another bleep in there, but...
Sorry, I'm just giving you some work for today.
Sergio, from a sommelier point of view, I've been working with the following for some years now, and always consistent have been Louis Jadot, Drouin, Planeta, Erasuriz, Kleiner Zalze, Allegrini, Zuccardi, and Villa Maria.
And then Stephen, in no particular order, I like Torres, Villa Maria, Brancott, Carmelo Recas, Conchitoro, Erasuriz, Moet, Penfolds, Connoisseur, Gonzalez Byers, Dort, Paul Mast. Will that do?
Yes, it will, Stephen.
It will, Stephen. Thank you.
In the US, Jeff says, and also echoed by Linda, I'm for Bonterra. Good quality, affordable, and they're big supporters of organic biodynamic practices.
And then Beth Kelly, our lovely fellow MW, just wrote, I really like Barefoot Pink Moscato.
I think she said she loves it, actually.
Love. She did say love, didn't she? I really love Barefoot Pink Moscato.
There is not enough love in the world, Beth.
I love that, Beth.
Thank you
That's
for that.
Very funny.
So a couple of funny quotes to end, and we just had to include these. So Kodu wrote, I love the red brands and occasionally the white ones.
Just all of them, really. Vidigal wines reliably drinkable. The Blossom Hill and Echo Falls are fit for drain cleaning. That was Roger.
Thank you, Roger. James said, I feel there's a certain snobbishness about big brands. I remember the fabulous Cashier del Diablo dinner with Marcelo Papa, the winemaker. You hosted, talking about me, all wines under £10.
It's all about you.
And quality still clearly in evidence. I do
you
remember.
You had to include that one, didn't you?
I do remember those dinners. And yes.
Oh, you're brilliant, darling. Gus gave us some great tips. He wrote Torres, Penfolds, Jacob's Creek Spear before a typo led him to invent a brand. Congo Sur. Great new brand.
There's a whole new competition in this. What wine brands don't yet exist that should? Congo Sur is just brilliant. You can just taste it right now, can't you? It's positively tropical.
Let's move on.
It's a great new brand. So some good tips and also some controversial opinions in there.
Absolutely.
But just to recap on the basics, what we can do. Do you know what the biggest selling brands actually are? So have a quick brainstorm. You can even pause this if you want to.
Pause now.
What do you think of the big brands?
See if you're right.
Let's see how many you get right. So we have got the data here.
We have indeed.
Now this is
right.
top 10 best-selling brands.
Good Lord, we can't speak today. Nobody's going to listen, are they? We can't actually speak. It's a vocal show, audio.
Globally. Now, this is from the drinks business.
So the global. This is globally best-selling brands. Yes,
so number one.
Yeah. So number one is Barefoot. 22.5 million cases.
That is a lot globally in 2019. Second is Gallo.
15 million cases.
Yeah.
Third, Yellowtail. These are probably not a surprise, really, are they? 11.5 million cases.
No. Fourth is, though.
Is a surprise. Yeah, well, certainly to me. I mean, maybe other people knew this, but Changyu, China's oldest winery, comes in fourth in terms of global wine sales. Amazing.
Yeah. Number 5, Robert Mondavi.
Then we've got Sutter Home, Hardy's, Great Wall, another China brand.
Yeah, number 8. Then Casillero from Chile on 9 and Echo Falls
at 10.
And top 5
in the UK.
Brands in the UK retail.
This is interesting. The top 5 in UK retail right now, this was July last year, was Hardy's, number 1, Barefoot, Mcguigan, Yellowtail and Cashier del Diablo. So
important to say, big brands, I think, have a really important place in the market.
They do.
They make life easy.
Yeah.
And the wall of wine in a shop or in a restaurant can be hugely intimidating. And big brands offer consistency, reliability, and they just help, especially with people new to wine.
Absolutely. And you cannot deny that. However, it's okay if the wine quality is okay, not a problem.
Yeah.
Our beef comes when the wine quality isn't good enough, especially at the price, because some of these brands are actually not cheap. I mean, they're not necessarily hugely expensive, but they could be £7 to £10, and there are often better wines out there available at the same price. And part of that, let's be honest, is because many of the big brands are actually made to be discounted. But to be discounted legally, they have to sell at full price for a minimum period of time. And so if you're unlucky enough to buy them at that full price, you are effectively paying too much for them,
which we have.
because they're made to be sold at the discounted price. And I think it also, it slightly undermines the value of wine if they're constantly being discounted, because it makes it hard for smaller producers to compete and to earn a living. So there's good and bad to the big brands, but the bottom line is, how good are they when you want to drink them?
Exactly.
What's the taste like?
Exactly. So that's what we went out to put to the test. Went out to our local supermarket, no names, but it is one of the biggest players in the UK, and bought the wines. So here's a clip, just for comedy purposes, of Masters of Wine buying cheap wine in a UK supermarket. Okay, so we're in the supermarket wine aisle with our masks on. You probably hear that.
Sounding a bit blurry.
And we're looking for brands, big wine brands. So what can we see? I mean,
we've got to go for Yellowtail, maybe Shiraz. There's several Yellowtail wines, aren't there? But I think Shiraz.
Well, let's just talk through the brands. So there's big aisle, big walls of wine here. We got Wolf Blass, we got Yellowtail, Hardy's.
We could definitely go for I think Cashier del Diablo.
Penfolds is up there. Yalumba, looking quite good, moving along.
Yeah.
19 Crimes, that's one that's
Gallo,
come up.
Obviously, Gallo.
Yeah.
May want,
Blossom Hill,
there's
Barefoot,
Hill.
Apothic is a big one that everyone's talking about at the moment, isn't it? Trevento from Argentina.
Maybe.
And then
what about
coming over to the whites and the rosés,
I mean,
there's
I'd
like a
always
wall.
say,
Echo Falls.
Jacob's Creek, is that there somewhere? Okay, well we can't buy everything, can we? So maybe we want half a dozen. What do you think?
It's actually quite. There's Connoisseur, Isla Negra from Chile. It's really, but it's going to be quite difficult to.
I think we can do it.
Whittle these down.
We can do it. We'll get down to half a dozen.
We're going to end up walking out of here with like 36 wine bottles, aren't we? and the nice people at the tills are going to think that we've got a problem.
We're keen on brands. They'll probably tell us we should be buying something else. Hey, let's go.
So in the end, I had to leave before you checked out, didn't I?
You did.
So what was the cashier's reaction? Did he think you had a serious problem, or did you just cheat and do the self-checkout? I bet you did that.
Well, I might have.
And maybe you enjoyed the moment the nice young man had to come over and ID you. Just check your ID.
That would be the day. Do you know, I think if somebody actually asked me for my ID for buying alcohol, I would actually kiss them.
You can't do that.
I can't do it at the moment.
It's not socially distanced.
No, it's definitely not socially distanced, but I do it anyway.
You'd be arrested on so many levels. Anyway. So the wines weren't going to taste themselves, were they?
Yeah,
So
no.
when we got home, we lined them up.
And we dived in. Okay, so we're here at our kitchen table. It's a little bit echoey. That's why the sound's a bit strange. But we're here because we need a bit of space. This is a big brand tasting.
Big
isn't
space,
it?
big brands. We're going to whiz through these as well, aren't we?
We are. Quick reaction. Whatever we think, straight away is what we think.
Okay,
yeah?
right. So here we go. So we're going to kick off with the Hardy's Crest Pinot Grigio 2020.
So, Aussie Pinot Grigio.
Aussie Pinot Grigio, big brand. Hardy's, I think, it's the biggest brand in the UK.
Smells sort of floral, light, fresh. That's fine. Oh, that's really nice. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's not got loads of character, but it's easy drinking.
I think it's a wine for people who
offensive.
don't really like the taste of wine too much.
Actually, on the finish, it's very. I've suddenly got a really watery taste in my mouth. Right, okay, good.
Slightly headachy, slightly the kind of wine that sort of saps the will to live out of you a little bit.
It doesn't. It was the weird thing about it was fine when you first taste it, and then it just disappears and feels a bit. Yeah, it's not a nice aftertaste.
Mixed reviews on that one. Okay. No. No.
It is,
the more
however,
I taste it, the less.
It is, however,
I like it,
only
£5.50.
£5.50.
that one?
£5.50. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very cheap.
Okay. Fair enough. Good context.
Okay.
Next one's a bit more expensive, isn't it? This is the Villa Maria private
Sauvignon
bin
Blanc.
Sauvignon Blanc 2020.
This is $9.50. Now, what's interesting is we bought these wines, and then I went just now to check on the prices to make sure we'd actually got the right prices, and they have all gone down or up, or it just shows how often these kind of wines are on discount. Or
So has this one come down in price?
This one's $7.50 at the moment. We bought it at $9.50.
We were diddled.
We were.
We lost out.
Oh, smells very Sauvignon though. Very,
it tastes
very
very Sauvignon.
sort of cat's bee on a gooseberry bush, isn't it? That one, tomato leaf.
That's what rocks your boat. It's very, very Sauvignon Blanc. It's quite aromatic, quite crunchy and fresh. It's exactly what you'd expect of a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. I think that's really impressive.
That makes me happy. And I'm going to say, I know we're going quickly through these, but I years ago used to buy Villa Maria Sauvignon Blanc and say it's a classic, it's perfect. If you want a nice wine to, any friends, buy that. It's definitely one to go for. And I think it went downhill, and actually that is tasting really nice.
I think it's had its ups and downs, hasn't it? I think that's fair enough. I think it went down for a period. Wasn't quite so good. That's really impressive. So back on form, Villa Maria. It's good to see. That's a tick in my box, and I think in yours as well. Next one.
But it is $9.50 normal price.
Yes.
Maybe meant to be discounted.
Well,
I don't know.
So
Difficult to know.
$9.50, $7.50, what's the real price?
I mean, the truth is that often these wines are just literally given a $9.50 price tag, and then
exactly.
But having said that, I'd be very happy to pay $7.50 or $9.50 for that, because I think it's lovely. Okay, what have we got next?
You're not a cheap date, are you? This is the Mcguigan Reserve Chardonnay.
So it's a bit deeper colour.
Yep.
Bit
2019.
yellow.
New South Wales.
And what does this cost? This is £6. Actually, we bought it at £6 and it's now £7. So these prices just flit around, don't they?
I'm afraid I'm not sold on that one. It has elements of Chardonnay. It's quite creamy. It's quite melony.
Bit smoky, but that's cheap Chardonnay.
Yeah.
That is properly cheap Chardonnay. I don't think that's good. No,
it's the kind of Chardonnay that gives Chardonnay a bad name.
Yeah. There are worse, but I think it's
yeah.
not
There's
exciting.
elements of it.
Yeah.
It's not super sickly.
No, it's got to be.
It's
the
not
acidity's there, but is it natural? I don't know. Have they added some? Who knows? But it's just it leaves you feeling uninspired, doesn't it? Not thrilling.
Slightly sort of cardboardy taste, isn't it?
No.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
Okay.
Especially in a world of increasingly fresh, upbeat Chardonnays, of which there are so many.
out there. I know lots of people don't like Chardonnay, but if you do, there are so many good Chardonnays out there, and that's not good enough.
No.
Okay, right. This is a blast from the past. This is Black Tower. Black Tower Fruity White is what it's called.
Okay.
So it's in its crazy new bottle that's sort of half
it's got
black,
that black top
half
and,
not. I'm not sure about that. What do you think of that bottle?
I don't like it, but
a bit weird, isn't it?
It's distinctive.
Mind you, it was really weird before, wasn't it? So I
Only
have no
9.5%
idea what this is made
alcohol.
from, but
No, it doesn't sound like
and how much does it cost? This is £5, a fiver. Is it a bargain? I was going to say a bargain at a fiver, but we'll have to see.
a princely fiver. I'm afraid that's not a bargain for me.
Oh dear, no. That's sort of sweet, isn't it?
Yeah, but you'd expect it to be sweet.
No, but I mean, you would.
But beyond being sweet,
you would expect it to be sweet, but sort of in a sort of alcoholic, like drinking an elderflower cordial.
It's quite confected. It's sort of sugar water, really.
I mean, yes, okay, fair enough. If you like a slightly sweeter style, there's nothing wrong with it in that sense. It's just, it's not complex, it's not interesting, it's wine, and it's slightly sweet.
Next up, we've got Barefoot Pink Moscato.
Pink Moscato.
Now, this one actually says deliciously sweet on the front label.
So we got a warning.
We got a warning. It's from California. So
this is currently $5.50. We bought it at $5.50. I think it's normally $6.25.
You see, I think that's quite fun. It's really fruity.
It's very sweet.
It's very sweet, but it's got good acidity as well. So it's not kind of super cloying.
Doesn't have much on the finish, let's be honest. You can't really...
Yeah, no, but it's quite fun.
I think if you had a bowl, like a strawberry, not even a bowl of strawberries, something a little bit sweeter than that, excuse me, sort of a strawberry tart or a summer pudding or something like that, or some vanilla ice cream with strawberries, that kind of thing, it would be actually really nice.
It's definitely, I think it's a wine if you've got a sweet tooth. But I am actually quite impressed with that one. I think that's lively, it's fun, it's a bit sweet, but it makes it clear that that's the case.
It's got strawberry fruit, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it looks like it does as well.
Quite a nice way. Yeah, I never expected to vaguely like that, but it's it depends what you're after. Depends what you're after.
We could say both these rosés are in clear bottles, which is not ideal.
Not ideal. So this is Blossom Hill White Zinfandel. So the Barefoot, as we said, is $5.50 from $6.25, and the Blossom Hill is £6.
Okay, Blossom Hill White is in. This says juicy and fresh on the front label. 10.5%.
It's more of a
alcohol.
red colour. This. So the Barefoot was a bit salmony pink, and this one's more of sort of a cherry red pink.
I think I prefer the Moscato, but it's a kind of medium sweet, quite refreshing, quite crisp.
That's less sweet, isn't it?
It's less sweet, so
it's
maybe
it's a bit bland.
done this the wrong way
somehow.
I'd like a little bit more Zinfandel fruit in there, but it's okay. It's sort of fun.
It's got some
easygoing.
darker fruit, to be fair to it. And I wouldn't drink it, though. I wouldn't waste my alcoholic units on that.
No, agreed. I'd rather have the pink Moscato. I don't know what sure that says about me.
But only in the sense of if you want a sweet wine. It's a properly sweet wine, that.
Well, I think it's a summer's day. I think it's an easy drinking, fruity wine, actually. I know it's sweet, but I think for me, I find the pink Moscato better balanced and more, actually, even though it's sweeter, more refreshing, more satisfying as a wine. Okay. Should we move on to the reds?
Move on to the reds. So out of that, what did we actually like? We liked the Sauvignon, didn't we?
Yes.
Mainly.
Well, yeah, but it is the most expensive. But I like the Moscato.
Yeah, and I think we quite like the Pinot Grigio. Quite surprised with... No. Yeah. No?
No, you did. More than me. Right, come on.
Right,
Pinot
okay.
Noir.
So what are we going for first?
Pinot Noir.
Brancott Estate Pinot Noir. So I think a lot of people have quite a good opinion of Brancott. So this is a Pinot Noir. Now, we have to say... This one is one that was in our cellar, so we didn't, and we already had it, so it's a little bit older, and we thought it'd be fun to put in to see if these big brands can age at all. So this is from 2014. I imagine the current vintage is probably 2019, and if you buy it now, it would cost you $9.50.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's survived the test of time brilliantly. I'm afraid, but we know. I mean, I know tasting recent Brancott Estate Pinot, it's a pretty decent wine. And I think under a tenner, it's not a bad. It's pretty decent value.
6 years. It's gone a bit bitter, hasn't it? It's gone a bit bitter and weird. But to be fair to it, you can still taste the Pinot, and I think, I still believe that that's actually going to be, that it's a good wine when you buy it fresh and young. It's probably not going to last 5 years.
There's a good lesson there. Drink it up.
Drink it straight away.
Don't hang around for 5
years. Do not leave it to age for 5 years.
Have we left that for 6 years?
Absolutely no idea.
Yeah, that's an
it must have been hidden somewhere.
Next one. So we got the Yellowtail Shiraz from Australia, the Casella family. This is the 2019 with the famous kangaroo on the label. So we bought this for £6. I've just looked and it's £7 at the moment. So similar. So it probably goes up a little bit, up and down a little bit, I think. Smells like black cherries, doesn't it? A bit of like blackcurrant syrup. Oh man. Oh, shoot me now. That's hard work.
That's not really worth discussing. No. Seriously, no.
It's a low point, isn't it?
No.
I'm really trying to look for positives here as well. I'm not trying to be condescending. This is not...
If anything was going to make you a teetotaler...
it smells like kind of,
I've thrown
char.
mine away.
If you stuck your head into a barbecue...
No, let's not be...
With
let's not.
kind of like, some sort of maple syrup poured over your head at the same time. That's what it's very charry.
Charry and a bit
There's
bitter
no fruit,
on the finish.
bitter.
But the fruit is then very syrupy and sort of jammy.
And you're left with this sort of taste in your mouth that's like chewing
Anyway, enough. It's not our favourite wine.
No.
Even though you could
I was expecting
get that
something
for
a bit more
£6.
upbeat, a bit more sweet, a bit
Yeah,
more
I think
fun.
I was a bit more plump and sort
and actually,
of juicy.
that's really disappointing.
Yeah, no, it's not something I would choose to buy again.
Okay. No.
Slightly disappointed we did buy that, yes.
However many pounds.
Okay.
It costs. Right, next up,
we've got
Cashier del Diablo Cabernet Sauvignon 2018.
Cashier del Diablo.
From Chile.
So Cabernet Sauvignon, Chile. This cost us £8. You'll be disappointed to hear we could have picked it up today for £6. Hey ho. But again, I think Cashier, being in all seriousness, often is discounted, isn't it? Smells like Cabernet.
It smells like Chilean Cabernet.
Smells like Chilean Cabernet. So go on. What would
minty,
you... Minty, yeah.
Cassis puree.
Leafy. Yeah.
Leafy. It's quite grown up, to be honest, and pretty impressive. It's dry, it's serious, it's got some nice tannin. For that price, that's a stonking wine. It's proper wine. Now,
it's a food wine. That's a food wine. That's not a kind of a quaffer.
Good thing to say. This is not a kind of super easygoing quaffing wine.
This is if you buy yourself a steak on a Friday night, pan fry it, not much else really, and this, some chips maybe or whatever. That would be really nice.
Exactly. So it's quite grown up. It's not.
It's dry.
And actually,
it's
it might be a
dry.
bit too dry for some people.
I think so. It's possibly.
If you like your reds lighter or slightly sweeter, that one's probably not for you. But it's at that price, at this level, the big brands, the volume that they're doing, seriously impressive. Right, last one. Apothic Red Winemakers Blend 2018. Very sort of
Now, this is one that's,
Gothic
I
label.
think, slightly less well known, isn't it?
California. Yeah, I mean, I think it's talked about a lot as a very particular
But it's
style.
not one of the ones that you go, oh yes, I know that. Everybody knows it.
No, it's not one of
not one of the really obvious ones. And this was one of the more expensive ones, again, like the Villa Maria. So this is £9. We paid £9. Disappointingly, yet again, it's down to £8 now.
We're not very savvy buyers,
But
are we?
we're not. We're comedy buyers, really, when we listen to what we're like in the supermarket. Well, it smells nice. It smells sort of raisiny. It smells quite warm, like autumny and raisiny. What's the alcohol on this then, just out of interest?
It is 13.5 on the label. Do you know, that's a really interesting stuff. It's definitely a little bit sweet. It's got that sweetness of fruit, but actually, overall, that's not bad.
I think that would be so appealing to so many people.
I think people would love it.
Because it's not the high alcohol sweet. It's actually the moderate alcohol. It's got the sweet, a little bit like an Italian passamento. I think again I think that's good. I think what this kind of proves is probably you do need to spend a little bit more to get a really nice wine from the big brands. So this one, that would be my top red. I like Cashier as well, but I think that one actually delivers a lot of wine in lots of different ways. It would suit so many different dishes. And I think the Villa Maria is looking really good. But, so the Apothic is currently £8, Villa Maria currently £7.50. You can't argue with that. That's good value.
That's not super cheap, though, is it? I mean, that's,
it's not super cheap, but then I don't believe that super cheap wine is ever going to thrill anybody.
I mean, there's the odd exception, isn't there? But it's kind of, it's a bit hit and miss.
Interesting.
So, really interesting. What are we going to do with the rest of this wine?
Don't know. Not drink it.
Let's have a party. So a mixed bag, I think, which is hardly surprising. And of course, I think there are way more wines within the brands we try. That's important to say, and obviously way more brands. Full stop. Finding wines that work best for you is probably just the way forward, isn't
I think that's true. And actually, one thing we forgot to mention, particularly about the Apothic, I think we say Apothic, don't we?
No, I think it's
Apothic.
But you always say things in a sort of sexy French accent. I like that. Web addresses, www.susiandpeter.com.
Give up. All right, I give up. I'm not going to even continue down that route. But if you, what I was going to say is, if you like spicy food, especially with maybe a meat curry or something with really full flavors, then sweeter reds tend to be perfect with that kind of food, and certainly that wine would work really well.
Because often we go for those passamento from southern Italy, but
we
actually
do something like that, and it was a really nice wine, really drinkable.
In that sweeter style.
Anyway, we wanted to explore this issue of trust when it comes to wine, in terms of both the price and the quality, but from a totally different perspective. So we decided to speak to two independent retailers here in the UK.
Yeah, so first up is Pierre Mansour. He's wine director at the Wine Society, which is an odd kind of retailer, I guess, in that it's a cooperative or mutual. So you have to buy membership and then you sort of part own the business in a way. And it's run on a non-profit and non-growth strategy. So profits are either used to keep wine prices low or invested in services like van delivery or maturing stock for later
But we should say also it's not expensive to become a member, and you usually get most of that back on your first
30, 40
case.
quid, but then you get 20 quid back on your first case. It's not massive.
So it's really worth, I think it's really worth doing.
Well, we're members, aren't we? But I started by asking Pierre what the Wine Society offered by way of answer or alternative to the reliability and consistency of the big wine brands.
We're really proud of the breadth of our range. In many ways, that's a function of the interest that our members have in wine.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt you, but breadth can be scary. That can mean a wall of wine. For a lot of people, that can be a turn-off.
Absolutely, and that's what I was going to say, is that in terms of the complexity of understanding wine, you're absolutely, we're very, very aware that can be a turn-off. So there are groups of our members that understand that breadth and are heavily involved. But there are also groups of members that are on the beginning of their kind of wine journey, and we do have a role in helping them take steps and giving them the confidence to choose the wines that they like. As you know, Peter, wine is subjective, and at the end of the day, the most important thing is whether you like a wine or not. So as a wine merchant, we see our role as sort of facilitating that. Our most popular wines are our what we call the Society's Own range. So these are wines that have our own brand on. They are, if you're a member of the Wine Society, I guess the most familiar wines. Those are wines that we spend, as a team of buyers, our team of buyers spend more time on those wines than any other wine that we buy. And the reason is, number one, it's got our name on it. Number two is that they're wines that mostly we create or I suppose customize so that they really reflect the absolute benchmark characteristics of that wine. So if it's the Society's White Burgundy, it is our way of saying this is how White Burgundy should express itself. So we get quite involved in putting those wines together, working with the winemakers. The familiarity of the label, the Wine Society's label, gives our members the confidence because A, the wines are consistent and they're reliable, they're really well priced. They are our most popular wines, and through lockdown, they've become even more popular, which I think is it's testament and a sort of a clear sort of function of what an own label brand should do, which is that to be safe. Having said that, they're safe, but we really try hard to go at that extra step and that extra mile to create wines that have character and complexity.
So that's really interesting. You say that your own label brands have really risen in popularity during lockdown. Is that, do you think, a symptom of what we're talking about, that people revert to familiarity in times of stress and crisis? You go for what's familiar and comforting.
So that's a really interesting question, because I think yes, but there's a but coming. So absolutely, but we've seen the other big trend that we've seen through lockdown is that our members have got even more adventurous outside of the comfort of own label, for example, but also outside of the comfort of some of the more well-known wine styles or more well-known grapes or countries. So looking at our performance through lockdown, countries like Greece, Lebanon, it's been quite extraordinary how they have grown in popularity. And so my kind of instinct on that is actually, if you've got a customer like our member who really, they like wine, they trust the Society's selection, they're at home, they're not going out as much. Wine lovers are naturally curious in wanting to discover new things, and they've done that through lockdown. It's been quite amazing. So I think there is this quite a strong element in the specialist sector of wine where we operate in being more adventurous during lockdown.
But what I'm hearing, which is very interesting, is we talk about brands working well because people trust them. They trust the reliability. They trust the consistency. That's why we like brands. But what you're saying is that it's just as much about trust in you as the wine merchant, you as the seller, as it is trust in the brand itself.
Absolutely. And I think if you look at the performance, so not just in wine, but across all consumer products through lockdown, it's the brands that are trusted by their consumers that have performed really, really well, and the brands that have been really quite upfront, transparent about the challenges or about the opportunities.
So one last question, Pierre. I'm going to put you on the spot now. We're talking about brands here, and you're fighting your corner. So I am coming to you. I don't know that much about wine, but I love my brands. Okay, so I normally buy Yellowtail Shiraz or Blossom Hill White Zinfandel. What would you offer me as an alternative to those wines?
Look, Pete, that is really a great question, because the amount of people that I meet on a daily basis who do, they've come into wine through brands like Yellowtail or so on and so forth. And I get asked a similar sort of question. So you've picked out a rosé and a red wine. Actually, the wine I would recommend is a white wine. I'd recommend New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. And the reason for that is I think that New Zealand's Sauvignon Blanc is a cracking style of wine. You know, number one, it's a very expressive wine. So you don't have to think too hard about enjoying what New Zealand Sauvignon offers. The other thing that New Zealand Sauvignon has is it does have a little bit of sweetness, although it's not a sweet wine, it's a dry wine. It has a little bit of sweetness that's offset by very crisp acidity. But that little bit of sweetness and the kind of overtness of the style, I believe, really appeals to people who have started drinking wine or drink wine through some of the bigger brands, because a lot of the bigger brands do retain quite high levels of sugar in their wine, because as humans we love sugar. So I would recommend New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc as my first option. And then in terms of a red wine,
you've got your Society's Australian Shiraz. Would that be a substitute for my Yellowtail?
You know what? I'd actually go to our Society's Californian Zinfandel. For those listeners who drink Yellowtail Shiraz will go, oh, hold on, that's a different grape, it's a different country. But actually, so our Californian Zinfandel, this is a red wine, not a blush rosé wine. It's a red wine, and it's really easy, approachable. It's got loads of fruit flavour. It's not too drying or too tannic, and therefore would be quite similar to Yellowtail Shiraz. So I would suggest that actually. I think people would like that. So it might seem I might have sort of suggested some slightly unusual choices, but they're not really unusual. They're really friendly wines, and I would be really confident that people that like those two, Yellowtail Shiraz and a Blossom Hill Blush Zin, would actually be quite flattered and find pleasure in a Zin from California that we list and a New Zealand Sauvignon.
I love your suggestions, Pierre. Thank you very much. I feel like you've really listened to me and you've taken my concerns into account. I feel cherished. Thank you and properly imaginative solutions. And I really love those suggestions. Pierre Mansour, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Peter.
Really interesting to hear what Pierre was saying about people not only going for familiar brands but also being more adventurous during lockdown.
Yeah, so this idea of sort of trusting your wine merchant rather than just the label, making your life sort of easy that way, is a really interesting one, I think. And it's a concept
definitely
taken to extremes at Diogenes the Dog, which is billed by its founder, Sonny Hodge, as a counterculture wine bar and shop in Elephant and Castle, which he set up to, in his own words, to challenge how we perceive, choose, drink and understand wine. And I asked him what he meant by that.
What we try and do is cut out all the smoke and mirrors and just talk tangibly and scientifically about what's in front of us. Diogenes was set up to do that essentially in as less or little patronizing a way as possible, because I guess it can be quite sort of preachy. So what we've done is we've taken, in a roundabout way, we've taken your options away. We've got a list that changes all the time, and it's focusing on the underdogs of the wine world. It's wines that none of us have heard about, whether you're an expert or not. We've got wines from India, Texas, Poland, China, Japan, the Czech Republic, all places that none of us are comfortable with, or regions that are more well established, but doing completely different things from what you would establish. So it's wines that are thinking outside of the box, whether it's from new places or old places doing different things, which means that when you're in the shop choosing a bottle to take away, or in the bar looking at the list thinking, oh my goodness, what does all this mean? We're actually still in the same position as a lot of us are with existing wine lists, but we're less scared to ask questions because we all know that these are wines that no one knows about. The fear factor is reduced by looking at these crazy wines thinking, I've got to ask questions. I've got to open up I've got to open up dialogues.
I see. So in a way, by making the wine list so sort of crazy, everyone's in the same boat. You know, no one's going to know about Texan Malbec because no one's really tried Texan Malbec, which you have.
And we're not scared to ask.
I see. So there's an element of we're in it together type, and you deliberately keep your list very short, don't you? You only have about 40 wines, is that right?
So I want to keep it accessible, and we have about 40 wines, and most of it's open and by the glass. I don't want anyone to have to commit to anything, and by keeping everything by the glass, you can have tasters of something before you commit to a bottle.
So people could have a taster and say, "Oh no, that's definitely not for me," but yes, that one does work.
Yeah, of course. At the end of the day, no matter how much you talk about something, no matter how much we might both be on the same wavelength about a glass or about something that I think you might like, there might be something that we all miss, and maybe you can't even explain yourself that you're not into. So I think it's about exploring and trying without feeling that you've been cheated in any way.
And I think that's the main worry for people, isn't it? Am I going to make an expensive mistake here? I'm willing to do stuff, but if I buy something, spend money, and it's a disaster, well, that's just a waste of time and my money. So that's what we're talking about a little bit in this episode: is big brands. Why do we all like big brands? We like it because it offers familiarity and consistency and reliability. But in a way, you're totally turning that model on its head, aren't you?
Yeah, precisely. I think with our culture now in our society now, we operate by there are so many things that we have to focus on. Those big brands and those big names are things that sort of make our life easier by going to the pub, going to a bar and saying, I want a glass of Malbec. The reason that you want that glass of Malbec is probably just for a quick, easy, simple decision, not thought about, because you're not going to the bar for the glass of Malbec. You're going there for your catch up with your friend. So it makes life easier by just having a brand or a name to jump on.
But if let's say I am a big fan of Yellowtail Shiraz or Gallo Cabernet, and I come to you and I say, Sonny, I've come to your establishment because I've heard good things, but this is what I always drink. I know I like it.
Amazing.
What are you going to say to me?
Immediately, I'd say, what is it that you like from them?
Okay. Well, I like, let's say I like Gallo Cabernet because it's, like I say, it's easy drinking. It's a lot of wine, and I feel like I'm getting satisfaction. But it's just really enjoyable.
So immediately, I would think, okay, Gallo, okay, easy drinking. Potentially, Cabernets can be quite big. Easy drinking is also in my mind. It doesn't mean much. It's the type of thing that's quite broad, and it's very, very subjective. So immediately, if you're going for easy drinking, I would go for something with very, very soft, mellow tannins. Or I would jump on the Cabernet thinking and go for something bigger and bolder and chunkier.
So what would you choose off your list at the moment that would work in that sense, do you think?
I would go for the two extremes, give the person a taste and see which one ticks their box. So maybe the first extreme would be something, we've got a Bulgarian Gamza on the list. And so have you had a Gamza before?
I've never had a Gamza before, Sonny.
So it's like an indigenous Bulgarian grape. This Gamza is made in a very, very similar style to most Beaujolais. It's really like light and juicy and very sort of candied fruit led, but it literally drinks like juice. So if you want something easy drinking, that is the most easy drinking wine you're ever going to have in your life. Or I would go to the other extreme. I brought some bottles with me because I thought it would be more exciting if I showed you a bottle.
Yeah, come on, show me.
Or I would go for, do you know Renegade Winery in Bethnal Green?
Yes.
So we've got their Vern on our list, and that is a Merlot Cabernet blend, Albanian grapes. It's really, really sort of big, chunky. It's been a year in oak. And I think if you're a Cabernet drinker and you like Cabernets because they're really like big and chunky, that would be the way forward. I think from the information that you gave me, if you were a guest, immediately I'd be thinking, you haven't given me anything that gives me a clear direction, because easy drinking is quite broad. So I would try and narrow it down. And then once we find out of those two options, like one of them's going to work. Either he likes the Cabernet because it's big and chunky, or he likes that particular wine because it's easy drinking. So we've given him big chunky rounds and easy drinking. And then I would have a conversation about what he really likes and why he likes it.
So this is really interesting. I feel like I'm being taken care of very, very personally by you. You're listening to me and you're saying, okay, actually, I just want to do a little experiment. I feel like you're experimenting, which is great because I'm discovering things. I'm giving you reactions, and then you can tailor that advice to me.
For sure. I think the hardest thing in setting up Diogenes was creating this this culture that we have, which is a culture that the guests have come to understand in time, where a lot of our regulars, they come in, they don't look at the list, they just say, what's new? Tell me about it and teach me. So it's this culture of learning rather than, oh, I'm going to have the thing that I always have, because the thing that you always have is probably going to go soon. It's probably gone in the next list or the list afterwards. So it's an idea of always trying something new, and your routine is routinely trying something different to learn rather than just going for the same thing all the time.
Sonny Hodge, thank you very much indeed.
That's all good.
Bulgarian Gamza, an Albanian Merlot. In the heart of London. Yeah. Whatever next day. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I think we need to check it out, don't we?
We do.
We haven't been. We need to go. But as for us checking out of this episode, what's that famous saying about how to eat well? I think eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Yeah. Mm. So if you were to relate this to wine, how about drink wine, not too much, mostly what you like?
That's very poetically done.
Do you think so?
I do. I love that. Thank you.
Are you just humouring me?
I think there's no, but I think equally there's more to it, isn't it? There is a whole universe of joy to discover in wine. You know, unlike anything else we eat or drink, it can capture and express minute differences. You know, of place, of time, of people, in just the most intriguing and delicious way. Yeah. You know, so it's well worth exploring. People talk about it having too much diversity. Well, the diversity is something that's a positive, that you can explore and find new things, and that's a joy in itself. So, you know, maybe an independent merchant is the easiest way to do that. You know, life is too short for bad wine. Is it?
If ever there was a maxim for lockdown, that has to be it, does it not?
Maybe. Yeah, and also, you know, there's what's that other maxim that people say? We say, whether your glass is half empty or half full, one thing is clear: there's room for more wine.
There is indeed. The perfect note to end on. Thanks for listening. If you think we've provided food for thought or wine for thought, please do leave a rating and review. We'd really appreciate it. Or, of course, please do send us your thoughts or questions via SpeakPipe. You can find the button on our website, susieandpeter.com. So until next time, cheers.